What's going on, guys? Blazing here. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and thank you for joining not just me, but us on another Raid Shadow Legends video. Guys, today I am so excited because I have somebody who is an arena god, both in Platinum Arena and Live Arena. He is so much fun to watch on his videos because he comes in with ideas that are just out of the box, able to compete against the mega whales, right? I've got the one, the only Sheeny on the channel. Sheeny, how are you doing, my man?
Hello, I'm doing good.
All right. So, we've talked a couple of times about doing a collab, and I feel like now is probably one of the better times because we've just had so much stuff going on. And we're going to focus more on the classic arena, right? The platinum arena side of things. And, one of the things I want to ask is, do you feel like the current arena meta is stale? Has it been the same for the last 6 months to a year? Is there any variation, or do you just need a particular team to push with it?
Well, I mean, you can certainly have different teams depending on your account and how much champions do you have. But for the top accounts, if you have every single champion, then the meta has been unchanged basically the entire year, and people pretty much use the same team. Like if we go into the specifics, I mean, everybody knows that the best defense team is like Ukraine duo with Sifi and UDK. And I remember at the start of the year, people were running their Marichkas in slow stone skin, and nowadays they are running them in fast stone skin. And that's pretty much as the meta has changed in this entire year. So everything else is exactly the same as people were running in the early part of the year.
Okay, so basically everybody's still running the duo. It's just maybe instead of going really slow, we're now going much faster, right? So it definitely does feel like that. I mean, do you have the duo yourself?
Yeah, no, I don't have the duo, and like just to compare it to the last year. Last year there was many different updates to the game. Like there was Baron buff, we got bolster set, we got blessings. There was Heprak release. There was many different things that kind of shifted the meta, and people had to come up with new teams for both offense and defense. And it was kind of interesting. And the reason why we haven't had it this year is because Taras and Marichka are just very good, and there is really nothing new to invent because it is the best defense team, and all of the offense teams revolve around trying to counter them. And mostly people are just using double Taras in offense anyway as well. But there is other teams as well, of course.
Okay. Now, let me ask you real quick. Do you think that having a, I guess, stale meta is good for the game, or, is it bad?
I mean, like if everything was very balanced, people could run different types of teams in defense and so on, like it kind of used to be during last year. And then even if the meta doesn't change all the time, then there is still new things to come up with, and against different types of team you approach in different ways. But I don't think Plarium can really, unless they keep releasing new OP things like on set intervals, I don't think they can really force this kind of meta changes into the game. But I think if they focused on the champion balance a bit more, and if the champion balance was more um, like if it existed, then there would be some people that maybe you don't have a good gear on some specific build, or you don't have a Taras and you run something else that is equally good. And then some people will focus on countering those types of teams, and some people will focus on other types of teams. And then there is like more diversity and strategy. But I think I don't think they really should try to force like balance changes or new meta in the game, but they should more focus on like some small nerfs and buffs every now and then.
Okay. Okay. Now, a couple of months ago, we had some controversy about the polymorph blessing, right? We see here everybody is running polymorph. If they have it, especially in a 6-star, they're going to do it. But pre quote unquote nerf, has the polymorph blessing played any changes in how you or anybody else plays in Plat Arena?
Well, like it hasn't really changed any of the gameplay in top arena. because everybody is going to have 6-star polymorph, or then they are pretty much not going to use it. But I would say that I kind of have a bit unpopular opinion on this one, and I think most people kind of got blessings wrong. I think blessings were very free-to-play friendly, and that's kind of the reason why they had to change polymorph and what's the other one called? What's the actual name of the smite blessing?
Brimstone.
Oh yeah, brimstone. Yeah. So both of those are like the top one for PvE and top one for PvP, and both of them were so good at 1-star that there wasn't enough demand for people, or like incentive for people to buy soul stones, and they had to alter them because of that. And before the polymorph change, even if you had 1-star polymorph on all of your supports, that was perfectly viable. And of course, it was better to have it at 6-star. But now that they are kind of basically, they forced it the way that either you have 6-star polymorph or then you use a different blessing. So but it doesn't make any difference in top platinum arena because everybody's gonna have 6-star polymorph anyway.
Right. That's an interesting way to look at it because, I mean, I'm not going to lie, when it first came out, I looked at it and I was like, well, this is definitely a nerf. This is going to hurt the free-to-play players. It's going to divide a huge gap. And I never really thought about, when the system was first designed, that it was, a lot of these blessings and stuff were actually beneficial to the free-to-play player, right? We weren't thinking about it being a 1-star, how beneficial it's going to be, but it really was. You are 100% right on that. Now, um, you know, do you feel polymorph is in a good stance right now, or should it still have some more tweaks to make it a little more balanced?
Yeah, okay, well, here I know I have the unpopular opinion again, but I actually was a big fan of polymorph. And I think many of the players that maybe played this game like 3 or 4 years ago can remember that every team that you would see is like a speed team with like Hegemon and Warlord, or at least one of them. And there wasn't really much options for any kind of go second teams or other strategies. It was all about speed meta, and like of course there were strategies to try counter other speed teams, but they were still using your own speed team. Like let's say that you were using Mauli in immunity set, who has a passive that increases the turn meter of your team when you get attacked, and then you try to go first that way. But basically, there was not a lot of nuance or anything else to do other than speed teams. And Polymorph, I think, was a very good thing because it kind of enabled that there is more diversity in the meta. And that's why I thought that the 6 months before, like between blessings, like even before blessings, the meta was very interesting. I think like the entire last year, I think was very good meta. But especially after the blessing update, until we got like Ukraine Duo and Harima, I think the meta was very diverse. And if you look at the old top 20 platinum leaderboards, you will see that people are actually running all kinds of different teams, and you see many different types of nuker. You see like Protoss, Heprak, Cupidus, Mortu, Candy. I don't even recall all of them, but there was a bunch of different nukers that you could use, and everybody wasn't using the exact same defense and offense teams.
Okay. Yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about is, and you touched on it a little bit, is the Ukrainian duo, right? Taras Marichka. Um, do you feel like it's kind of necessary to have those two to be able to, let's say, place in like the top 50 of Plat Arena, or is it, do you think thinking outside the box and coming up with, counters to them is a viable way for you to, get into that top area?
It's not like you can't do it, but it's like extremely hard to do it, and it's not like an equal thing. And as far as offense go, like it's not like everybody is using Ukraine Duo in offense. Actually, I mean everybody is using them, but the top of the top players, they are well, it depends on people. But let's say, for instance, Mad players, I think most of them are not using like most of the time Ukraine Duo in offense. They are using other types of team to counter Ukraine Duo in offense, but everybody is using Ukraine Duo in defense, and almost everybody is using like Marichka, Taras, UDK, and Sifi, and that's literally the best defense team, and there is nothing else. And maybe somebody doesn't have a Sifi and they use Duchess or Necret or whatever, but basically that is the best defense team. But as far as offense team goes, Ukraine Duo in offense is the safest offense team. And especially if you know the builds of the enemy team, then it's not the best one, because there is other ways that you can do the fights faster, but you kind of need to know their builds, and you need to have a very good account, and you need lockout or some specific champions to do it. But
Okay.
you don't necessarily need them for offense, but you need them for defense if you want to compete for the top spots. And to be clear, it's not like people haven't gotten to top 20 without duo, but I mean, that is hard, and it's kind of like they are like getting lucky, or they have the right timing that they get up there just before they get farmed out. Because if you're not running Ukraine duo, then you're gonna get hit way more. And to be like fair, I mean, it's a little bit of like self flex, but I mean, I have finished like it was pretty early on. Like I think Ukraine Duo was released on December, and on the last day of January, I did finish rank 2 with my defense. So I mean, even I have finished like 20 when the Ukraine Duo was in meta. But after we got many 10 access on both of them, nowadays pretty much everyone has them. There is a couple constant top 20 players, like maybe Husky from Mad, for instance, that maybe miss one of them, or usually it's one of them and not both of them. But practically everybody has them. And like I said, the main issue is defense, not offense, because the top players are not using Ukraine Duo in offense like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see here. I mean, just looking at, I mean, this is just a weak mid defense, but we've got a +2 to Ross here. We've got a +1 there, another +1 there. We got a +4 here, which is just mind blowing, right? And I think you're right on a lot of players don't use the Taurus Marichka for offense. I mean, as somebody who myself has the duo and I have a double Taras, it's really not easy trying to break through all of that. I think like the highest I've been able to place with my account so far has been like top 90. And I think that was kind of just sheer luck. But now let's talk about countering the duo, right? Is there, as someone like yourself who doesn't have the duo, how do you go about countering? Do you go up against those teams, or you just kind of walk away and try to find someone else?
Well, there is no, like, it depends how high you are in Platinum Arena, but even if you're like low or mid Platinum Arena, most of the teams are going to be Ukraine Duo. But if you are pretty high in it, then there's no other choice, and you have to fight them. And I mean, I post every of my Platinum Arena reset pushes, and you can see my offense logs and what teams I use. But mostly I'm using like UDK, Rotos, like Python. Well, the last champion of the team kind of depends on the fights, but usually it's like Duchess, UDK, Rotos, and Python. And that's pretty painful and slow to fight them, but most of, like, it depends if they have lockout and so on. But the basic Ukraine Duo team without UDK, I can beat in around 1.5 to 2 minutes with that. But yeah, I mean, I can totally farm them, but the issue is that it's slow and my defense gets attacked a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
And to be fair, like the top accounts, when they know the builds of your team, they can farm some Ukraine Duo teams still in like even less than 1 minute. But you need to have really good account that you can make sure you go first, and you have empowered lockout, and you have all of the specific champions that you might want to do it. I don't know if you have your defense logs maybe from last reset or some other reset,
I
but
don't, not yet.
but if you see what kind of teams people use, like the typical teams are gonna be like Ukraine Duo, but then people do use bomb teams in offense as well, which is basically the hardest team to pull off, because it has very high risk to fail and you need to know the enemy builds. But bombs is the fastest way to beat Ukraine Duo, which is very hard because Marichka has the passive that it puts the block damage when you get bombed and so on. But there is bombs, and then there is different strategies revolving around Rotos and, like, for instance, Turvold and some other ones.
Okay. Yeah, I think Plarium was talking about, it being kind of a very slow meta, and they're trying to get out of that. And I think the introduction of Sun Wukong kind of changed a lot of things. Do you agree with that? Do you see him? I mean, he looks meta changing. I did try doing some pushes with him, but is he somebody that you think is going to kind of take Taras and Marichka out of the game now?
In Classic Arena,
Yeah.
I don't think Wukong is really relevant. If we talk about the top classic arena, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, top teams are not using Wukong, but Wukong is pretty good in live arena for sure, and you can definitely use it in classic arena. But none of the top players are using Wukong. I mean, they have different types of teams, so it's basically irrelevant if we talk about the top meta.
Okay. Okay. Now, one of the things is going to be UDK, right? He came in, and I think he's just been everybody's worst nightmare in Plat Arena. Like, a lot of people were saying that he countered Rotus and just made it a huge hard nerf. Now, I am one of those people that say Rotos it will eat up any defense you have, even with a UDK. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, depends, but I mean, you can definitely kill UDK teams with Rotos, but the issue is that the fights are going to be slow. And if we talk about Rotos specifically, I mean, Harima is much bigger issue for him than UDK, but nobody is actually really using Harima in classic arena defense, and that's mostly because like Taras exists and he does high damage without any ignore defense. And of course, there is other champions that like Turbo, who is also used a lot in the meta, and specifically to counter UDK and Taras and so on. But
Okay.
like, I don't think if UDK didn't exist, Rotos would definitely be more popular for sure. But UDK is also a very good matchup against Ukraine duo or Taras, so it is also affecting them. But I think if we like UDK is very annoying, and I agree that it made the meta slower. But I think the issue isn't like specifically UDK, but it's the combination of UDK and Stone Skin. If there was some better, like more realistic and practical ways to counter Stone Skin, then UDK wouldn't be as OP as it is right now. But I don't think the issue is that if you just look at the UDK kit by itself, it's very simple and basic one. But the issue is that if you build a slow UDK in a 6-piece Stone Skin, then it's incredibly strong at that point.
Yeah.
And you can use, of course, Wukong to counter UDK, but the top, if we talk about like the top 20, the top players are not really trying to counter UDK that way because there is better ways to do it, like doing AoE damage with Taras or with his passive, or locking out the enemy team and killing them with turbo or bombs and so on.
Okay. Now you touched up a little bit on Stone Skin. Do you feel Stone Skin is good for the arena, or is it kind of toxic?
Uh, well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's fine. It's just the combination of UDK and Stone Skin happens to be very annoying, but maybe there should be a way to counter it. Like, if we consider Bolster, that was one of the big meta changes that we got last year. That in summer we got Heproc, and I don't want to mix up the timelines, but first we got Heproc, which was dominating the summer, and then at some point we got the Cupidus buff, and I think after Cupidus buff, we got the Bolster set. And at that time, Bolster set was totally like dominating the meta. And that was actually the first reset when we got Bolster set was the first time that I got top 3. But then I think just the next week after that, or maybe 2 weeks after that, I don't want to mix things up, but either 1 or 2 weeks after I got the Bolster set. I mean, I didn't buy the entire Forge Pass, so some people could have gotten it like a week before. But 1 week after you got the Bolster set, they introduced the Baron buff, and then because Baron, ignores defense and like everything, shields and so on, it was a big counter to Bolster, and you had to balance it out by using both Bolster and Stone Skin. Because the reset before, I stopped running Stone Skin and I was running, was it double or triple Bolster in my team? I think I ran triple Bolster the first time that I got top 3. But then, because we got Baron buff and then later we got George, they kind of balanced out Bolster, that it isn't dominating the game anymore like it was for a couple of weeks. I think we probably should get something like that to Stone Skin. And technically, we do have bombs, but bombs are very hard to use and very easy to counter, so it isn't that simple. And of course, Marichka has the passive that puts block damage on your team when you get bombed. So that also makes it a lot harder.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I have my Astrolith at like 9.5k attack, and going up against some of the top guys, that doesn't even scratch the surface, right? So, now you've been playing for quite a long time, right? 4 years, and you've seen arena metas come and go, and you classify yourself as, kind of low spend, budget friendly player.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you feel like, to try to compete at the top, is it necessary to have to whale out? Like, do you feel like, you did mention that, last meta you were able to place top second. Is it really necessary for somebody to come in here and whale out to be able to, come in and hit the top 50, let's say?
Well, yeah, I think like 1 to 2 years ago, it used to be a lot more like free to play friendly. But I think nowadays it kind of is like that. I mean, um, like this is a bit like flexing, but 2 years ago, I was able to finish consistently top 50 using Rector and Wogot in my defense team. And I wasn't the only one that was using those champions. I mean, lots of people were running like their weird off meta teams because they were missing out on some top champions. But because there was a big diversity of defense teams and offense teams people were running, you could figure out some way to counter one specific team and do well, even if you didn't have the best champions. And I think after the speed meta was kind of gutted a bit, like between that and Ukraine duo, it was very free to play friendly to compete. I mean, you still needed good gear and play the game a long time. But nowadays, like if you compare, let's say, like a 4-year-old account that doesn't have the meta champions but has insanely good gear, and then you compare like a level 60 account that has Ukraine duo and bought the bolster pass, then the second account has much better chance to win. And I don't know if you are aware, but we have literally had a level 60 account. I think it was a level 68 account finishing in top 20 because they had Ukraine duo. So I think the game is the least free to play friendly as it has ever been as far as the like PvP scene goes.
Okay. Um, you kind of touched up on that a little bit there, and I want to follow up with a question. We understand what the Ukrainian duo represents with everything going on. Um, do you think that when they were introduced up until now, are they healthy for Arena? Is it good for Arena, and is it still enjoyable?
Well, I mean, for some people it is, and for some people it isn't. I know that we have had many long time players in Mad quit the game during the Ukraine like duo meta, and lots of people have either quit the game or became a lot less active. Like our clan definitely was like way more active before the Ukraine duo, but I'm sure. I mean, if you have Ukraine duo, then you definitely should use it and enjoy it. And I'm sure the people that do have it, some of them do enjoy it a lot. But yeah, I think the meta is very like undiverse and boring, and there isn't really much ways to like fix it other than actually nerfing them. Because we were I was talking about it with Final Genpachi, and I don't think there is really like even when we have introduced the primal champions, as we like saw the current ones, none of them are like relevant into the meta, and I don't see how they could introduce a champion that like is better than Ukraine duo for PvP, because like they are just like um, much more OP than anything else has ever been. And the only way really to change the meta would be to nerf them, because it's not like they can really like. I mean, if we talk about Taras for instance, he has a passive that reduces enemy attack every time you hit him. He has a passive that reduces all damage by 50%. He's a HP scaling champion. He has the best like HP scaling multipliers in the game, and like pretty much the best multipliers in game for practical PvP situations, because of the way his H3 scales with buffs, and you don't need like any specific buffs with him, and you can't reduce his damage if his HP gets reduced and so on. And then he also constantly counterattacks with A2 and so on. There's just so many different things on him. If like some random champion got one of those like perks, it would be a top tier champion. So I've been calling it from the start that both Taras and Marichka should be nerfed harder than Rotos was, which is the most nerfed champion ever in the history of the game, which might sound funny for some people because Rotos is still one of the best champions in the game. But basically, there's no other way, in my opinion, to fix PvP other than nerfing them like very hard. And I don't really see them introducing champions that will overtake Taras and Marichka. Even if we get Primal Void champions, I don't see how they could make champions that are better than them or counter them or anything like that. Or if there is a champion that counters them, then it's like completely broken and nothing else in this game can like compare against that. And then we're just gonna get the Ukraine duo meta like all over again with new champions.
Okay. Now, just the being a little realistic here, we know that Plarium's done quite a few 10x's on these guys, and no one's ever a fan of a nerf. I mean, I know people are calling for the Infinity Clan Boss team for Hydra to have nerf that, and so a nerf is never great, but let's call it a rebalance. What do you think, just something that would tweak Taras and Marichka would work well enough to, kind of give the meta a little bit of a fresh taste?
Well, okay, we can go skill by skill because there's actually so many things that I would change. But first of all, there is some like what I would probably call as bug fixes, because I think there's some oversights with them. Like if you scroll over the Marichka A1, like if you have multiple Taras in the team, all of them will join the ally attack. I don't know if that was intended or oversight, but I would personally I don't think it should work that way, because it doesn't work that way for other like duo champions either. So I first of all, I think like that shouldn't work. Just like if you have multiple Marichkas in your team, like all of them won't proc their passive, only one of them will. So I think only one Taras should join the ally attack of Marichka, and even then it's still like basically the best A1 in the game, unless we maybe compare it to Siphi or something else, but best one of its kind, and definitely the best offensive A1 on a support champion. Then I think on Marichka A2, probably they should just nerf the output of the heal like a decent amount, or then increase the cooldown by 1 turn. As far as the A3 goes, I think that's fine. I wouldn't really change anything about that. But I mean, it's still a good skill. All of her skills are good. Then I think the biggest thing on Marichka is her passive. And the main issue, well, first of all, it's multiple passives. Like both Marichka and Taras have this team that they have many different passives, when most of the champions in this game don't have any passive at all, and some have one passive, but for some reason, both Taras and Marichka have multiple different passives. But the passive that revives everybody in the team when Marichka dies, I think that probably should have cooldown. And if they don't want to put a cooldown on it, then either it should have a cooldown, or it should revive your team without turn meter or much less than 75%. The biggest issue with the Marichka passive is that when you combine it with Siphi, and Marichka revives Siphi at 75% turn meter, and then Siphi is instantly going to revive Marichka at full turn meter, and it's just an endless cycle that is very hard to kill unless you have something very specific like Lockout or some of the better champions in the game. Maybe Rotos A3 that can kill one of them and then get extra turn and also kill the other one when it gets revived. But it's very tricky to kill through that combination, and most champions in the game can't do it, or most teams can't do it. I think that's the biggest issue. But then the effect that it puts block damage on those different effects, I don't think that needs to be nerfed if the A2 and the passive, the revive part of the passive are nerfed. But that could also be nerfed. We were talking about UDK and Stoneskin before, and Marichka is making it incredibly hard to use bomb. So that could be something that they can consider. But I don't think Plarium would take any specific suggestion, and probably it could be some kind of combination of that. But I think those are the most broken parts about Marichka.
Let me ask you, on the passive, would you think instead of doing block damage, maybe unkillable would be, a little bit better for her kit? Kind of change it up a little bit?
I don't think the block damage is too issue if the other, like, it's a very good passive, but if the other parts of her kit weren't super OP, then the block damage wouldn't be that big issue. But that if I were to decide, I would nerf the A2 and the revive part of the passive, and that's it. And fix the bug with the A1 that multiple Taras shouldn't join the ally attack.
Okay. Yeah, definitely some solid ideas out there. Hopefully, Plarium's listening and kind of gives us a little bit of a balance change because we, the game's got over 700 champions in, and we all love to pull the shards, collect the champions, build them up, and I think it's probably one of the most fun things about the game, being able to use everybody anywhere you want, and so I definitely think that some sort of balance rechange. I don't want to call it nerf because we all know people get a little upset, right? But yeah. So, do you have anything you want to let everybody out there know about the arena meta or anything about live arena? Like, what are your thoughts on both of these? Both of these events, I guess I should say, in game or game modes. There we go.
Wait, are we not going to talk about Taras?
Oh, okay. Let's talk. Let's talk about Taras.
I think most people would consider Taras more OP than Marichka, but me personally, I think Taras is more OP than Marichka, but it's like I just don't have a good answer for the combination of like the Sifi and Marichka revives, so I have bigger issue with that. But I think Taras is still the more OP of the two. But
Okay.
Okay, his A1 is fine, but I would say that one weird thing about Taras is that he has so many different debuffs. Like he already has the debuff on A1 and he has other ones, and every skill has like million different effects. But even the A1 has a decent multiplier and then fills the turn meter and puts a decrease attack on like enemy team. That's pretty strong A1, but that wouldn't be the part that I would nerf. But then if we go to the A2, I think the multiplier on A2 is like too good. I kind of get the mechanic behind it that you get the double damage if Taras attack is lower than the enemy attack. But Taras has one of the lowest base attacks in the game, and the 0.7 multiplier is like absolutely bonkers for a HP scaling champion. Like for instance, Mountain King at one time used to be the highest scaling HP nuker, and he had a 0.3 multiplier, so that's like more than double of that, and then it procs every time Marichka gets attacked. But I think on the A, and this also does stun. The A1 does decrease attack, and then this also does stun, so he has insane amount of CC. And then the passive fears the entire team at the start, which is like basically a better version of Hegemon. But on the A2, I would nerf the multiplier, and I think it probably should have a cooldown with the passive effect that he counterattacks with it when Marichka gets hit. I don't know what cooldown it should be, like 1 turn or 2 turn, but I think it probably should have cooldown, or then the multiplier should be reduced a good amount. But then one alternative way that you could also consider nerfing that skill is that you increase the Taras base attack, because when he has so low base attack, it's kind of making that skill not counterable when it almost seems like it was intended that you can counter it, but it's pretty hard to actually counter it in practice. And then on the A3, it gets like that 15% increased damage for each buff. I think there should be some kind of cap, like how many buffs can contribute to the damage increase, so that you can get like ridiculous, like 300k hits from an HP scaling champion without like any HP buff and true buffs. I think the damage is just too high on this skill, but it also does other good things when it increases the duration of your ally buffs, which of course synergizes with that skill. But I think the biggest issue with that skill is that it just has too big multiplier, and it should be capped with certain amount of buffs. And then if we go to his passives, and I think Taras basically has 4 different passives if we count the A2, because it's also a passive effect. But I don't think he should have one of these passives that he has at tops, but all of them are super OP. So the one that reduces everybody's attack by 10% every time you get hit, that basically makes attack scaling champions unviable unless you can like one-shot the Taras and end the fight fast. I think that is just too good. I don't know what I should say about it. And either it should be removed or nerfed significantly, or they should nerf other parts about it. But I do kind of feel like that is making attack nukers unviable and kind of forcing people to use their own Taras or other champions like Rotos who don't completely or at all scale from attack. Then as far as the fear part goes, I think it's strong and it's very annoying, but it's not the biggest issue with Taras. And luckily, at least, it's not a true fear and it's just a normal fear. But I think they should consider like nerfing that, or at least making it require accuracy, because I mean he has basically 3 different CCs. He has decrease attack on A1, he has a stun on A2, and then he fears everybody at the start. I think that's too strong combination. And then if we look at the other passive, that is the biggest issue. Like apart from just the straight multipliers with Taras, I don't think any champion in the game should have a passive like this, and it shouldn't especially be a nuker. Like Taras is the best nuker in the game, and it's also the tankiest champion in the game. Like you can't balance a meta where a nuker is the tankiest champion in the game. He just shouldn't have this passive at all. I think if there is some kind of damage reduction, it should be like significantly less than 50%. And oh yeah, and that part also that Taras is, I'm sure you have heard about it before, that other champions, if their max HP gets reduced, and they are HP scaling champions, their damage will also be reduced. But Taras is a special one at that when his HP gets reduced, his damage actually doesn't get reduced, and he scales from his original max HP and not his current max HP. So that, I guess I would call it also a bug, I assume, like bug or oversight. I think that should be fixed. And if they fix that, then maybe there would be ways to try to counter Taras to like try to reduce his max HP or something.
Yeah, I think they came out and they said that no, it's working as intended a while back, because there was a lot of other content creators that rose the same issue. And yeah, to be quite honest, for myself, unless the Taurus is built in stone skin, which I don't see a lot of it, there's a couple of people that I've seen have it. I feel like
people do build him in stone skin at the top platinum. Like you need good account, but the top accounts do actually run that build a good amount.
Yeah, I feel like he's not a big issue if you're gonna use Rotos, which again, then we're talking about UDK and countering him. But I feel like Marichka is probably the bigger issue, because the revive, I think you were right, is definitely OP on that, right?
Yeah,
But
I think Rotos. Yeah, I think Rotos has a fairly good matchup against Taras, but not many other champions can do it. Like Rotos is very special champion in the way that he's able to do fairly well against Taras, but that's not the case with pretty much every other champion, because like Rotos is also tanky, and he's also scaling from HP, and he's not really bothered by Taras passive reducing his like attack. But and also if you have Sifi and Rotos, then you're not gonna get stunned by Taras A2. But I think it's mostly because of Rotos, and for other champions, Taras is very like hard matchup, and Rotos is almost like a counter against Taras, really.
right. Yeah, no, it's, I mean, I can speak for myself. I think my main Taurus is sitting at like 115k HP, 3k defense, and I think his attack might be like 1200.
Yeah,
Like
I can say that I have seen like the top Taras builds are gonna be like 150 to 160k HP. So if you have really good gear, then you can scale it up a lot.
Yeah. So, all right. Is there, which, back to my question before we jumped onto the Taras, which I'm sorry, I didn't mean to skip them, but between the two game modes, Live Arena and Plat Arena, which one are you currently finding more enjoyable?
Well, I'm definitely right now enjoying Live Arena more because, like, the meta is more diverse. I think one of the biggest issues with like Taras and Marichka, it's not just the fact that they are strong, but even if you are able to beat them, they are a lot slower fights than other alternatives, and that's why you're only seeing them in defense on the top accounts. And that is huge issue in Classic Arena, and that's why people don't use anything else but Ukraine Duo in defense. But in Live Arena, since the time doesn't matter of the match, they are a lot more counterable, but you have to do like longer fights, and that's why I'm definitely enjoying live arena more, because there's more agency and there's more like tactics and strategy that I can actually try to use there. But I would say that when live arena was announced, I was very skeptical about it, and I was not thinking that I would like it a lot, exactly because I knew that the fights were going to be very slow in live arena. But I think because classic arena has been like so stale and so slow, a lot of people that used to be big fans of classic arena are playing live arena more. But of course, some people are still focusing on classic arena and don't care at all about live arena.
Okay. Now, before we end off, I want to ask you, is there something Plarium could do to, I think for myself, the biggest issue is the reset time. Because for me, it's like 3 in the morning, which kills me because I got to be up in like 3 hours to go to work. But is there anything that Plarium could do to kind of improve the status of, or the enjoyment, I guess I should say, of Classic Arena?
Like as far as the schedule goes, or something else.
Schedule or anything. Like, I mean, we really we we all know that it's basically knowing who your opponent is. Everybody by this point knows what the builds are going to be. I'm sure what like Panda's builds are going to be, or what everybody else's builds on the accounts are, right? So we kind of know how to counter each other's teams. I think some people have called for maybe like a blind arena during like the last 15-30 minutes where you don't know who you're going to get into, because one of the things that kind of not saves us, but helps a lot of the higher end clans is the tags, right? So me not attacking another SP member, you not attacking another MAD member or ET or whatever, that plays a big part, especially for players that aren't in these clans. So do you think there's something that they could do to kind of change that up a little bit?
Well, as far as the first part about your question regarding the schedule, Plarium has actually given official answer about this twice before. I think the last time was maybe 1 or 2 years ago, and then maybe 1 or 2 years before that they said the exact same thing. But like many people have suggested that we should either have rotating like timeline on the like when the reset happens, make it work on weekends so that everybody, like, or not everybody, but most people, despite their time zones, would be able to do it if they really want to. But Varium's official response, which they have given the exact same response to it twice, is that they want it to be during a time when their workers are online and can monitor it, and that has to be on Monday, like early in the morning. So they are not considering any other times, and it's like it's set in stone. Like classic arena on weekends will never happen. So it is what it is. I don't know. Have you heard about that before, or you haven't?
Uh, so I know I heard Scratch, I want to say about a year ago, say that they were looking for input, and I felt that that was kind of awesome that they were looking to kind of change it, because I do enjoy Arena, I do enjoy pushing Plat. It's just for me on a Monday morning at 3 a.m. It's just a killer. I think like if they, don't get me wrong, Plarium has made millions, billions of dollars. I think they could afford to hire a couple of extra people on like a Saturday night to kind of, have them observe this. There's not a lot of people that really push for Plat Arena. I think maybe at most we're talking like 3,000 accounts, maybe less or more. But I think they could do something like that to kind of make it better. And I think they might actually get more interaction from the community. So,
Yeah. Personally, I would prefer if it would be on weekends, but they have basically given their answer that that's not ever going to happen. So,
yeah.
and I think the kind of issue is that I mean we are all like PvP players, but that's not the majority of the player base, and that's not really their main focus, and they have much more important issues to them than Platinum Arena time slot or the like Platinum Arena balance, and they are thinking about like marketing and sales and ad campaigns and graphics and that kind of stuff.
Right. It's definitely, a top 1% problem than a 99% of the community. So I can understand that problem, that fact.
Yeah, and
Um,
I would also say that it's kind of missed opportunity on Clarium's part, because I have tried to tell the the community managers this as well, but they like to do a lot of competitions in like Facebook and other places, and they do different kinds of ad campaigns with like content creators, and they focus on marketing. I think now that we have Live Arena, they should really do like some kind of Live Arena competitions. Like they should host them like themselves. Like it could be both like for the CCs and for everybody. But I think that could be a good marketing thing and something that the PvP players would like and the endgame players would enjoy. But it could also be a marketing thing, and I don't really get that. Since we do have the real-time arena, why are they not making competitions about it?
Yeah, and that's a very solid question, and I think I want to have you back on the channel till we talk specifically about Live Arena, because I feel like that's a whole different animal, and especially because we're going to be announcing it next week on the podcast, but we're going to be doing a content creator challenge for Live Arena. So, and I think you said you're going to partake in this one.
What was the other part about your question?
Oh,
What was the second thing?
Is there anything that they can do to kind of change Arena to make it a little more fun about, the whole clan tag thing where,
Yeah.
obviously we can't attack each other's clans. So it's basically, ET, MAD, SP, IPR, and it's just basically those clans going against each other because, let's face it, and it's, you guys have a monopoly on the player base, right? You guys are one of the biggest arena clans out there, and that's pretty much your main focus from what I've understood. But not being able to attack certain players, I feel kind of puts maybe people at a little bit of a disadvantage. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to answer this question, and I knew that you were going to ask about it. And I have seen, of course, other top arena clans often bring this up. And on this issue, I'm kind of going to take more like murdering style position, and I'm going to disagree with everybody. And I think you guys are all like a little bit wrong about this, even though I'm sure I'm very biased since I'm in MAD. But like, first of all, we have had clan tags since the beginning of the game. And in the earlier part of the game, we used to have much bigger PvP clans than we have now. Like at some point, like for instance, the Ancient Order had like, I don't know, like 60 clans or like some insane amount of like clans, and they had probably like on many occasions they probably had like 100 people in the top 300 on like classic arena reset, and there has always been clan tags and coalitions, but I don't think they make that much difference. They make difference in the top 20. Outside of the top 20, I think they make literal zero difference, and people are kind of overthinking that issue. But even in top 20, I mean, it's much more important to have like the right champions and the right builds and use the right teams. And if you have a good defense team, then you can basically win regardless of your clan tag. And that's like, I'm not saying that the MAD tag doesn't give top 20 players advantage, because it definitely does. But I think it's kind of good for the game because it incentivizes the clans to like build communities and focus on PvP. And it's not like MAD has always been like the number one clan, or I mean, I guess like since it was created, but before that there was multiple different clans. Like at one time, the Ancient Order was the best PvP clan, and then at one time, Gods and Legends was the best PvP clan. It's not like it can change, and probably not most people aren't like super hardcore platinum arena pushers. They might not even know about this, but for instance, during last summer, definitely IPR was getting most of the trophies and like getting the top positions, and that was because they had like a small group of active players with very good accounts that put a lot of time into it. But I think if you're like, if we're not talking about top 10, and then there is those other things that I mentioned, but if we're talking like top 100 or even top 50 or top 500, the biggest issue is the champions. The clan tag doesn't make any difference at that point, in my opinion. And I don't know, wait, can I quickly find some old pictures to flex about it? But I mean, it's not like I was always in like MAD, and even when I wasn't in MAD, it's like I remember when I joined MAD like a little bit more than 2 years ago, I was finishing the exact same like position, And at that time, I was finishing around top 50 on average, like never really below top 100, but somewhere around top 50. And it didn't make any difference. But where it makes difference is in the like top 20 or top 10 for those top accounts. But I'm kind of curious, like, what's your opinion when I kind of bring the opposing view on this?
So I can't lie. I think it's more of a mental thing, right? Like when I see like a mad tag, I'm like, oh great, this is going to be a hard fight. Um, and maybe it's just again just a mental thing, but it's like when I see somebody without a clan tag that I don't know, it's like okay, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to beat them. And sometimes that's true, sometimes that's not. But then when you start going into like the IPR ones and you start going into the MAD or the ET, you're like, okay, these are going to be fights. And sometimes I feel like, not now because I know a lot of the accounts, but before I was trying to push plat, before I joined SP, it was like, okay, I'm not going up against this account because it's a mad clan. The reputation is just forget it. Those are the top of the top. When I feel like sometimes now that might not be the case, right? And it's kind of just one of those things where it's like I do see a lot of people that as soon as they see that clan tag, they're like, nope, I'm done. Not facing them. Forget it. I walk
Yeah.
out.
By the way, let me get into the specifics why I think it matters in like top 20 or top 10, but it doesn't outside. I think this like might not be super obvious for everybody if you're not like if you haven't been pushing very high in Platinum Arena. But if you are in like even top 50, but let's say that if you're in top 20 during the reset, it's very easy to find any specific player because you just do one or two refreshes and you're bound to find whoever you want to fight. And that's why the top players, they often find some specific account that they can beat very fast and they know that they can't lose to. And then they focus and speed farm those teams. And when you're in like a top clan like Mad, in the or like other top clans as well, I mean everybody does the same thing, even if Mad is currently the highest ranking one. But those top accounts are then gonna focus the top accounts of the other clans, and they're gonna get like more hits if you have people that are high up that they can find them and are capable of hitting them. And that way you can try to organize it so that people are hitting the guy that has the most points. And that's definitely upside of being in Mad or other top clans. And since Mad is the most dominant one right now, it definitely gives them advantage. But if you are like at top 300 or even top 100, people are going to look for the easiest team that they can find, or that they happen to have the team that they can counter against. And you're not able to easily refresh and find any specific account. So it's not like you can target specific clan or player. So it really doesn't make any difference at that point.
Right. Yeah, like I think you're right. I think, for the top plans, it definitely, or for the top 20 spots, I think you're definitely right because it is a whole different animal to be up there than it is to be down, at the 200, 300 mark. Even at the 100, it's still a lot different. I can refresh my screen 5 or 6 times and not find the account that I just farmed 2 or 3 times. So, okay.
Yeah, and like for instance, like last time I finished rank 2, there was like two specific players and I hit both of them. Like I don't recall the exact number out of top of my head, but I hit both of them like around like 5 to 10 times in the last 50 minutes. I was basically only hitting two different players in the like last 50 minutes of the game, except maybe like one or two hits against other people. But that's how the top players operate if you are high up in the ladder. And those kind of strategies are not like relevant outside of the top Platinum Arena. And that's the only part where the clan tag actually makes any kind of difference. Also, I would like to point out that since of course the other clans like want to beat Mad and are like not happy about this situation. I looked up how many players we had pushing last week, for instance, and it was 30 players. It's not like we have like hundreds of players pushing. And out of those 30 players, there was also multiple people like me that are finishing in like top 200 or top 500 or whatever. So the actual number of mad players that are finishing top 20, it's not very high, but it's the same specific people that have been actively doing it for the last couple of years. And that's the reason why Mad is doing well, because they have an active core group that is doing it. And last summer, IPR had that kind of group. and that's why they were able to beat MAD during that time. And MAD could easily be like overthrown on reset, but it just happens to be that it has been dominant for like several years at this point, and a large amount of those very like active players that are into PvP, they probably want to join MAD either because like to get advantage / and because they want to like learn all of the strategies from the people that are doing well. But it's not like other clans couldn't easily overthrow MAD, and it's not like we have like 60 players that push PLAT or anything. On average, nowadays we have 30 or less than 30 on any given reset that are pushing for PLAT.
Okay. Yeah, I think you make a lot of sense on that. You do. I think it's the numbers do help. I mean, especially when it's like for us. I think we had last week that we had like 10 people push, but when it's like 5 different major clans that are going up at the same time, and the number just helps. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and also to add context, like a year ago, when our clan was at most active, we had around like 40 to 45 players on every reset. So we had like maybe half more platinum pushers than we do now. And I remember at that time I was also monitoring how many platinum pushers IPR had, and on average they had around 5 less than us at that moment. And for the like couple months, like in the last summer, they were able to like soundly do better than us. But it's another topic to get into. But big part of that also was that HEPROC was released the last summer, and HEPROC was very dominant, and they had multiple players that had like HEPROC defense teams. So it's kind of similar like the meta is right now with Taras and Marichka, but it was like a specific type of team for a brief period of time, for a couple of months, that they were able to take advantage of. And if we had some kind of changes to the game balance and so on, then other clans and other individual players would definitely have opportunities to try to get their top placements. And I would say, for me, for instance, somebody that has like 1.5k spending and is the lowest spending player in the game with red avatar, all of my like top 3 finishes, I have finished second twice and third twice. All of them are when something new was released to the game, because I don't have the best champions, I don't have the best gear, even though I have like decent gear. But all of my best finishes are during the times when something changed in the game and there was an update. And immediately on the first week, I knew what was the thing to do, and I was ahead of the meta. And that's the way that other players or other clans could also like gain advantage and do their own personal records.
Okay. All right. I think we pretty much covered everything. Arena meta, China counter the duo. I think there's a lot of solid suggestions of what Plarium needs to do to kind of make things a little more enjoyable for us. Is there anything else you want to let the community know?
No, other than you told me that at some point I was supposed to shout out some other content creator.
Yes. So we do shout outs on the channel, and who do you have as a shout out for us?
Yeah, I was going to do that to Final Kenpachi this time. I was thinking about doing it to Rats, but he doesn't really need it. So shout out to Final Kenpachi, a free-to-play player who likes to stream and focus on arena content as well.
Yeah. Actually, Final Kenpachi is a $14.99 free-to-player. He has, I don't know if you know, but a couple of months ago he did an inquiry, and apparently, like when he first had his account, he spent like $14 on the account. So,
yeah, I mean, I know about that, but for me, like $14 or $0 is the same thing. I don't think that makes any difference, and I think like many people may be too much scared about those like specific titles, that is somebody like Kraken or Whale or what kind of free-to-play player they are. I think those are not very relevant, and probably the biggest thing, like of course gear matters, and that they both go like hand in hand, but champions is still the key part about the game. Like if you are a free-to-play player that hasn't gotten good champions, or if you are a free-to-play player who has happened to get Ukraine Duo, then I don't think you can even compare those two. And the title of free-to-play player, or did you spend $14 or however, that doesn't really make any difference. The difference is more about what champions do you have. Like if you have Ukraine Duo, then you're very good, even if you literally spend $0. And if somebody spent like $14 and they don't have it, then they are definitely like billion times worse off in this game as far as PvP goes.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So where can people come to find you? Do you stream on Twitch, YouTube? Where can people come in and support you?
I haven't streamed ever. I'm kind of considering doing it at some point, but I'm not really like a professional content creator, and it's more of like a hobby thing for me. But the only way that you can find me is on YouTube or my Discord, and I'm sure you can find it by searching my name. And my channel, because it focuses on PvP content, I think it's kind of very niche, and I think most people who care about that type of content probably already know it. So I don't think me promoting my channel really does that much, to be honest.
Okay. Well, we will put in the description below your channel, guys. If you haven't already followed Sheeny, make sure you guys go throw him a follow over on YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything, right? It's free. Content creators do this because we love to do this. We love to interact with the community. So make sure you guys go show him some love. Sheeny, thank you very much for coming on the channel, man. It has been a pleasure talking with you. I hope to have you on the channel more. I hope to actually have you on the channel on a Sunday when we do the podcast. I think that would be great to have you on and kind of get some of your input on that end. So that's it, guys. Hopefully you guys learned something. And as always, much love, much appreciation. Be safe, be well, be good to each other. And we'll catch you guys on next time.